You already know great white sharks are apex predators. That part is correct. What most people get slightly wrong is what that actually means in practice. The assumption is that apex predators matter because they kill things. Reduce the prey population, keep numbers balanced, maintain the chain. That logic is not wrong. It's just not the mechanism that actually holds the ocean together. Great whites don't primarily control the ocean by killing. They control it by being present. The animals below them don't just respond when a shark attacks. They reorganize their entire behavior, their movement, their feeding zones, based on where sharks exist. Take the shark out and those animals stop acting like prey. And when they stop acting like prey, every system beneath them starts to break. Not quickly, quietly, over years, until you're left with a fundamentally different ocean and no single morning you can point to where it changed. So what happens when that presence disappears? By the late 20th century, great white populations had dropped sharply across multiple ocean regions, driven by targeted fishing, accidental bycatch, demand for shark fins, and a trophy trade in jaws and teeth. Current estimates place the global adult population at somewhere below 300-500 individuals, though that number is contested, and scientists are not certain how accurate it is. Counting animals that spend most of their lives in open water is genuinely difficult. What is documentable is where the declines happened. Off California, in parts of South Africa, along southeastern Australia. These weren't gradual statistical drifts. They were measurable contractions in regional populations spread across decades. And great whites don't recover fast. Females don't reach sexual maturity until roughly their early 30s. Gestation runs more than a year. Litters are small. A species that takes 33 years to produce its first offspring does not bounce back from population loss on a human planning horizon. Legal protections arrived, CITES listing in 2004 regional bans in various jurisdictions, but slowing the decline is not the same as reversing it. When the sharks thinned out, the animals that had been living in their shadow stopped behaving like prey. Mid-level predators, what ecologists call mesopredators, lost both the behavioral suppression and the direct predation pressure that had kept their populations in check. Off the US East Coast, the reduction of large shark populations across multiple species was followed by a dramatic expansion in cow-nose rays. Not a modest increase. Researchers estimated a triangular growth pattern sustained over several decades. Hundreds of millions of rays moving through coastal bays in formations dense enough to be visible from the air. And cow-nose rays eat bay scallops. A North Carolina scallop fishery that had operated continuously for over a century, the kind of industry that families built across generations, was functionally destroyed within years. This is documented in a 2007 paper in the journal Science by Myers and colleagues. The sharks weren't even eating the scallops, the sharks were eating the things that ate the scallops. Their absence moved through the system like a slow shockwave. That wave keeps moving. With mesopredators operating without constraint, the animals at the base of coastal food webs, small fish, invertebrates, the organisms that other organisms depend on, come under sustained distributed pressure that the system was never structured to absorb. And eventually it reaches the seafloor. Overgrazing by expanded ray and fish populations damages seagrass beds. Seagrass, Zostra marina and related species, is not background scenery. A single acre of healthy seagrass supports roughly 40 Isaura fish and around 50 million small invertebrates. It is nursery habitat for juvenile fish, a significant carbon sink and an oxygen source. Once bioturbation and overgrazing destroy a seagrass bed, recovery, if it happens at all, takes decades. So the sequence now looks like this. Shark populations decline, ray populations expand, scallops collapse, seagrass erodes, juvenile fish lose their nursery habitat, and commercial fish stocks begin to thin at their source. If you're wondering how far down a single apex predator's influence can actually reach, this is the answer. If you want to see where this goes next, subscribing now means you won't miss the rest of what's coming. What makes this stranger is that it doesn't stop with direct predation chains. Sharks influence where large animals spend their time, and large animals are themselves participants in ocean chemistry. Sea turtles, for example, are among the primary predators of jellyfish. In regions where shark pressure on sea turtle populations decreased, some areas recorded unusual volatility in jellyfish populations, blooms outside normal seasonal patterns, concentrations in unexpected zones. That effect ripples outward. Jellyfish compete with juvenile fish for plankton, and when jellyfish concentrations spike, fish recruitment drops. Meanwhile, the redistribution of whale movement corridors, another downstream effect of changing predator pressure, alters what researchers call the whale pump, the process by which large cetaceans redistribute phosphorus and nitrogen through surface waters simply by feeding, migrating and defecating across ocean regions. Change where the whales concentrate, and you change nutrient distribution. Change nutrient distribution, and you change what grows in the surface water at a microscopic level. A great white shark disappearing begins to show up as a shift in plankton distribution and nitrogen ratios in water that no shark ever visited. The system is that connected. Here is where the story changes shape. In some regions with sustained legal protection, parts of the Northeast Pacific, stretches of South Africa's coastline, great white numbers show tentative signs of stabilization. That is real, and it matters. But the recovery of the predator does not automatically restore the ecosystem. The prey populations shifted while the sharks were gone. The habitat was altered, and mesopredator behavior, once it expands to fill an absence, doesn't immediately contract when the apex predator returns. The behavioral reset lags behind the population change by years, sometimes longer. In documented cases, prey species altered their ranges during the period of shark absence and did not return when sharks reappeared. The shark came back to an ocean organized differently than the one its predatory behavior was calibrated for. What this means is that removing the top predator didn't just reduce predation. It changed the decision-making rules for every other species in the system. Reinstating the predator doesn't reinstall the old rules. The rules that existed before may simply be gone. This isn't a story about a shark anymore. It's a story about irreversibility. The most dangerous thing about losing an apex predator is that the damage is quiet. There is no collapse you can point to on a single morning. The seagrass thins over years. The scallop fishery stops producing, and people blame weather and overfishing before they look further up the chain. The migrations shift by a few degrees of latitude, and the change looks like natural variation until it doesn't. By the time the picture becomes legible, you are already living in the restructured version, the one that was built in the absence of the architecture that organized it. Great white sharks were never just predators. They were the mechanism by which an entire ocean's behavior was structured. The ocean didn't need them to survive. It needed them to remain coherent. Thanks for watching. If this changed the way you think about it, hit like and click the video on the screen right now.